About half a decade ago, I was taking a novel reading class in school. They took us into the high school library to find something to read. Not knowing what I wanted, I went to the science fiction section, considering it's one of my favorite genres of all time. So I looked through there and a title caught my eye. Now, the first time I ever heard this title, it was involved with a scene in a movie that looked frankly goofy to me. It was a dueling scene with some truly weird special effects. However, it still stuck with me, and since I heard that books are always better than the movies, I decided to bite the bullet and read it. And to this day, Dune has been one of my favorite novels of all time. The book opens up with a space emperor worried that the much more popular and fair Duke Leto Atreides is going to supplant him in terms of public support and power. So he decides to send Duke Leto and his entourage to Arrakis, a barren, harsh world whose only merit of value is the only source of a Deus Ex Machina drug. After Leto gets there, the Space Emperor sends legions of his Space Death Squad soldiers under the leadership of a rival aristocratic leader by the name of Baron Harkonnen, a vile and cunning man. He finds his forces in a giant battle. Defeated by the Space Blackshirts, Duke Leto commits suicide trying to take out the evil Baron, after, of course, his family of his concubine and his son are hustled off to the desert to be murdered by Sandworm. However, the concubine uses her space courtesan ninja powers in order to get hands up on the guards and takes them out. She and her son escape into the desert, where they're cornered by a giant creature. After running away from the giant creature into a cave, they find themselves surrounded by the natives of the planet, the Fremen, a nomadic race of space ninjas. After Lady Jessica uses her powers once again in order to overcome their leader, and Paul uses his training to escape vantage point away from them, the Fremen decide to adopt them into their culture. About 3 years pass after the night of the betrayal, and both Paul and Jessica have acclimated pretty well to life inside of the Fremen. Paul's not only become a leader within there, but he's also met the scrappy desert blossom of his dreams in Chani. Jessica also has given birth to the daughter she was bearing during the night of the betrayal, and has also become a leader within the community as a sort of spiritual priestess, the process of becoming of which has turned her daughter into an abnormal person with the mind of an adult. Anyway, Paul and the Fremen one day discover that there are pirates on the planet trying to harvest spice, and among them is one of his old tutors, a fighting tutor by the name of Gurney Halleck. They recruit Gurney, and with his help, go about sabotaging the Harkonnen-managed spice production on the planet. They succeed so much that the Space Emperor has to come in to grill the Baron Harkonnen about his failures. Paul and the Fremen utilize this opportunity. They decide to nuke a hole in the side of a mountain range during a sandstorm so that they can ride legions of their space desert ninjas onto the airfield where the Emperor and the Baron are. They ride in on the sandworms and they take on an epic ninja battle between the Fremen and the Space Blackshirts. Eventually, the Baron Harkonnen gets assassinated by Alia, Paul's sister, and Paul takes on Feyd-Rautha. After defeating Feyd-Rautha, Paul gives an ultimatum to the Space Emperor, saying that he'll destroy the Space Deus Ex Machina drug by killing off all the worms that crap it out, unless he's given the throne. Paul ends up marrying the Emperor's daughter Irulan in order to gain the throne. Lady Jessica then consoles Chani, saying that while Irulan may have his legal hand, his heart will always belong to her. Dune is an awesome book, not just because of its compelling plot, but because of a variety of other things that make that plot work. It has really interesting style choices, really fascinating characters, and an even more deep and fascinating world that's as enigmatic as it is understandable. The first element of note that I think is really a standout is the combat. Unlike most science fiction like Macross or Star Wars or Firefly that rely on gun battles or robots, this series relies much more on melee combat, more specifically knife fights, giving each and every one of them a sort of chess match with stabbing element over just plain shooting and who has the biggest gun. The second element that I think is really interesting is the factions and the characters. For example, Duke Leto is your standard heroic type. He's noble, he's true, he's relatively honest, and he tries to do things well for all of his men. He bites it pretty on in the story, and Paul is instead toughened up and given his destiny by the much stronger and more interesting Fremen who mold him throughout the second half of the book into the last third. The Fremen are fascinating characters because not only are they scrappy and tough survivalists, but they're also extremely superstitious, tight-knit, and loyal, with a sort of cult-like fascination with the sandworms that they believe are the personification of the tough survivalist spirit that Arrakis brings out in everybody. Really interesting book for multiple examples of this kind of thing, including the Baron Harkonnen's faction, the Emperor, and a variety of others. All in all, Dune is a really awesome book about an exiled prince regaining his birthright from usurpers by being toughened up by space ninjas. And if that isn't a cool book, then I don't know what would be a cool book. This is Pontius Porcius signing off.